Welcome back to the Working Mumma podcast, or if you're new here, a very big welcome. This podcast is all about supporting women through the realities of combining career, motherhood, and everything in between. Whether you're on maternity leave, preparing to return to work, deep in the daycare juggle, or simply trying to hold it all together, you're in the right place. Today's episode is one that every mum, partner, and employer needs to hear. We're talking about the invisible load, why so many mothers feel like they are carrying too much, and why supporting fathers could actually be one of the biggest ways to support mums. Joining me today is Michael Ray, a fatherhood advocate, speaker, writer, and solo dad. Michael became a father at 49 and just 2 years later became the full-time solo parent to his daughter Charlie. Since then, he has become a passionate advocate for changing the way we think about fatherhood, parental leave, flexible work, and the role dads play at home. Michael has spent years speaking about the fatherhood forfeit and what dads lose when workplaces and society make them feel like parenting is optional, and why the motherhood penalty will never truly change unless we also change the way that we support fathers. This conversation is honest, eye-opening, and incredibly relatable. We talk about the mental load, why mums burn out, the systems that are still not set up for modern families, and why equality at work starts with equality at home. If you ever felt like you were carrying too much, wished your partner would step in more, or wondered why the juggle feels so hard, this episode will help you feel more seen than a recent ABC Instagram post. Let's get into it. Welcome, Michael, to the Working Mumma podcast. I have to say, I'm so excited and very thankful that you have agreed to come on. So thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Carina. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Michael, how's your day going so far?
Pretty good. We've just explained before we came on air, I've moved on to a farm now, so waiting on a vet to show up to castrate a couple of our alpacas. So never a boring moment.
No, definitely not. All right, Michael, if people don't know much about you, they will certainly get to know a lot about you and the amazing work that you do to advocate for working dads particularly. But Michael, do you want to take us back to the moment that you became a dad at 49 and then just 2 years later became a solo father to your daughter Charlie? How has that changed your world, both personally as well as professionally?
Carina, unrecognisable. I grew up in a pretty stereotypical household. Dad worked, mum ran the household. Mum raised 3 kids. 2 of them turned out pretty good. So my whole life I just had seen that typical heteronormative. Mum ran the house, dad worked, did everything for her, and it worked beautifully. They were married their entire lives, and it was a great childhood. Got through life in a hyper-masculine world as a elite level strength and conditioning coach and a bodyguard and security guy. Did security for every rock star that came through Melbourne and Victoria in the late 80s, everyone from Bon Jovi to Whitney Houston, got to travel the world.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great life. Then at 49 years old, after a short-term relationship, bang, you're a dad. To say that I was ill-prepared was an understatement, because I thought fatherhood had passed me by, but I sat comfortable in the knowledge that my daughter's mother had 3 children before, and as long as I did as I was told, I could be a great dad. So to me, being a great dad was the typical, I work hard, do as she says, and I've always got that backup thing. Then 9 months later, the relationship fell over, and then it was at about, Charlie was about 19 months old, and suddenly her mum had left completely and has played no further part in her life.
Wow.
I was just over 50, and suddenly I was 100% responsible for this little girl, and I'd absorbed all of the messages, media, marketing, friends, even my mum doubted my ability to raise his kid. And it had all sunk in, I'd worn the Homer Simpsons, the Family Guys, the bumbling Tim the Toolman dad. And to say I was terrified was an understatement, Carina. But we muddled through, and a lot of the well-meaning advice that came to me didn't really suit me or my situation. But then we muddled through and I became comfortable in the role. And at 4 years old, my daughter's 4-year-old ballet concert, suddenly we get the message from the information about the thing. Mothers are expected to have the ballet bun this way. Mothers need to ensure that the lipstick is this shade. Mothers need to be available for the full 3-hour, present for the full 3-hour dress rehearsal. There's a special Mummy and Me ticket offer. And right at the end, and of course, there are no males allowed in the backstage area.
And how did that obviously didn't work well for you in your situation?
No, and I pointed this out to them. I said, well, it's only my daughter and I. And they said, well, does she have a nana or an auntie? I said, well, she got both of those, but I'm her parent. And they've gone, well, Michael, you need to understand it's not about you, it's about the other little girls. And I said, well, I'm 100% with you that it's not about me, but it's actually about my daughter looking around the room and going, with a parent, with a parent, with a parent, and here I am on my own, and through no fault of her own. And that's why I said to him, so I'm not trying to be bloody-minded. There is no alternative. All of the other mums were on my side. You know, I had my mum tried sitting in those ballet hallways for a couple of years leading up to that. And, you know, I'd been accepted as honorary one of the mums, and luckily one of the other mums knew a journalist, Susie O'Brien from the Herald Sun. She said, Michael, would you mind if I rang Susie? This is terrible. They can't do that, because they were pretty firm in their no, it can't happen. She rang Susie. Susie rang me. Then we had, I think Susie sought comment from Kate Fitzgerald, the sex discrimination commissioner at that time. I had her on the phone later that day, told me it was illegal. Suddenly it was front page news. And
wow.
I was on Channel 9, Channel 10, ABC, and BBC in London. It blew up. It went crazy. And suddenly the poor old ballet school, they went to them for comment, and they did a no comment interview. And they came to me, and that's why I said to them, you know, at this stage, we were just going through the marriage equality debate. So I said, you know, we're going to have two mums, two dads, like all of this happening, like surely a parent is a parent. And then it just came to me out of the blue. How are women ever meant to achieve or grasp both of all of those hard-fought opportunities that they've been fighting tooth and nail for? How are we meant to grasp them with both hands if one hand's still carrying the caring load? Like, here's just eventually they overturned the ban, and I got to participate in the heady world of 4-year-old creative arts, and I was a blubbering mess, and it was great. But from that point on, that was where the advocacy and the awareness started. So I'm realizing that we don't have change tables in male spaces, but we do have syringe.
I know, that's amazing.
Being abused and challenged for going into parents' rooms with my daughter, and quite a common occurrence. I get message after message on it. And just the world isn't really set up for male carers.
I have to say, amazing work and actually doing that advocacy to really challenge the stereotype, because some people just go, okay, that's all right. I'll get my mother or my aunt or someone like that to do it. But I think it's amazing that you've raised it up, as you say, you know, you can actually do it. And I have to say also, kudos for you. Did you do the bun for the ballet? Amazing.
Here's the thing, Carina. Carly, at one stage, we walked into kindy and one of her little mates had a flash braid, and she said, oh, Dad, you know, do you reckon we could do that? And I said, not a hope. Like, I've got no idea. Man buns weren't a thing when I was growing up back in the 70s. So I went and had lessons done. Hair became quite a point of pride for me, because her hair would get commented on. But a lot of the time it was, oh, gee, Mum's done a great job on that French braid. And it'd be like, well, no, it was me. And it was like, aren't you amazing? And I'd sit there and I'd actually say, you know, there are male hairdressers, and some of them are quite good. So why is it something out of the ordinary just because a dad has done it, rather than if you go to a male hairdresser? And some of the real upmarket ones that charge a fortune,
Oh, they're all male?
Yeah. But suddenly, because it was a dad doing it, it became something notable. But I went and had lessons for it, Carina, and that's why I say to other dads, it's like any other role. If it's a new role with new responsibilities and new skills that are needed, what's the difference between going off to do an Excel spreadsheet course or a home renovation course or an apprenticeship in anything? Why is parenting any different? Like, give it the respect that it deserves. It's not maternal instinct or mother knows best or only a mother's love. It's simply time in role. That whole misnomer that we instantly become parents the moment our kids are born is as ridiculous as saying a student becomes a scholar the minute they walk through the school gates. I get better and better at it. I've finally learned to exhale and not hold my breath. My daughter's now 14 and I don't think she's going to be on the news for torturing small animals or anything. So it's like, it seems to have worked out fairly well. She's traveling well and I'm more relaxed now. But in the beginning, I was sure I was going to get it wrong.
And what was it like for you having all of that noise around you, particularly early on, of saying, no, you're a dad, you can't do it all? And I guess also looking at some of those society systems of say, even down to the change rooms, there typically aren't, change tables in a male's change room, which I just still, I'm so shocked about as well.
Yeah, and Karina, the thing with the change table is not only a logistical problem, but what message does it send to our boys and girls? Like when they walk
It's
in.
ridiculous. I remember my husband going, there's no, because he would then say, I'm going to change one of our boys' nappies. And he's like, well, there's no change table in it. And then he was like, but then he'd also sometimes come out, there is a change table in there. We'd be all excited.
Yeah, I actually take photos of it now and people come on and post it. But I even copped it from my mum, Korean, like my mum would give me advice and the unsolicited advice would come thick and fast. Thankfully, my other mum's friends have told me it's not just men, Michael, it's anyone further down the track. It seems to be something that anyone will give advice to anyone, people. And that's why I say, there was a stage where I considered myself an expert, completely knowledgeable about all facets of raising a child. And then I actually had a child and most of it went out the window.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a male thing, but that unsolicited advice can sometimes become the loudest voice in the room, the noise in the head where women don't trust our own instincts. We've all got our own stories to write, our own path to follow, just like any parent. It's not unique to men. And that's why I'd say, the majority of us parent the way our parents parent. Some of us are good parents because of our parents, and some of us are good parents despite our parents. But, we should be able to make that conscious decision that, this is what I believe, this is how I'd like to do it, and be entrusted with that role ourselves.
Yeah, no, definitely. And were there some key systems early on in your journey and maybe throughout your whole journey as a solo dad that really you find have actually not been set up to support you and your situation today?
Here in Victoria, the first point of contact and the ongoing support hub for new parents is still called the Maternal and Child Health Centre. We have as between 1 in 10 and 1 in 7 fathers suffering perinatal mental health challenges, yet no screening.
And we don't hear about that, do we?
Yeah, and no screening done. And then if we look at Bowen's family systems theory, where the family isn't a distinct group of parts, it's a complete unit. So one part of that unit affects all the other parts. So if dad's struggling, mum's struggling. If dad has perinatal mental health challenges, mum is more likely to suffer with postnatal depression. But we don't screen dads. Dad's seen as an option, a nice to have, like, good on you for being there. We know that through studies, dad's taught about his important role in assisting with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding's likely to go longer and go better. We have the silly situation where men are entitled to 10 days, it's just been improved. There's 15 days of parental leave specifically reserved for dads usually just for you, Dad. The rest can be shared. So mum has to transfer it out. But those 15 days, if mum has a C-section, that's 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Yeah, you
We
can't
want me to look.
drive. You cannot do anything. I had one. It's very debilitating.
So forcing dad back to work even after his 3 weeks, and that's why I say this isn't supporting women. The best thing we can do to move equality forward is enable, encourage, expect and respect fathers as co-equal parents. Nothing will move it forward. The only reason the motherhood penalty exists is because we've made fatherhood seem optional, risky, or second rate. And if we fix that, if we begin at the beginning and tie our boys as tightly to fatherhood as what we do our girls to motherhood, women still suffer a lot of biases. We have the maybe baby penalty. We got a bloke and we got a woman, both in childbearing. If she becomes pregnant, she's out of the workforce. If this bloke's wife becomes pregnant, he's going to want to work harder, climb the ladder, earn more so he can provide more. So that's where the divergence starts.
Yeah, 100%.
But when we talk about the motherhood penalty, in the same voice, we should be talking about the fatherhood forfeit. Dad loses that connection, those irreplaceable moments, all of those things. So I think we miss the point with a lot of advocacy where we talk about male allies. And I don't like the term because it strikes me as adversarial, like it's men against women. Some men will help women and some, if we tell blokes what's in it for blokes, they're in it. And that's what I say to everyone. I speak with countless dads across the world. Not one of them has regretted taking that extra time off or being more present or engaged, and they wouldn't trade it for anything.
No.
Relationships are better. Men's mental health and physical health is better. Kids do better with involved, engaged and present. Everyone wins. So it's not just a matter of, I'm a knight on a white horse riding in and saying, give women more opportunities. I'm the bloke saying, what about us? We want in on what women have been forced to juggle. But it's magical. It changes for the better. And trying to explain to somebody what fatherhood is actually like, who hasn't experienced it, is like trying to explain to somebody what water's like when they've never swum in it. Like there are so many aspects of it and so many great things about it, that when we told women they could have it all, no one actually thought that meant doing it all.
No, and we can't do it all. And that's why I'm also a big advocate of actually believing that the mental load and gender equality actually starts in the household.
100%.
So the more that we can, as both partners, if they're, heterosexual or even no matter what gender your background is, that the more you can actually share it in the home, that way that you're actually then showing the equality as well to your kids. But if pendulum swung so far, that's the role models that you're actually going to see. And then also that then permeates then into the workforce, because the men, it's amazing how after the meeting, the women will typically be the ones that will clean up the table if there's jugs of water and things like that. So it's amazing those subtle things that can start at home, but then transcend into the workforce.
100%, Carina. Not fatherhood, but parenthood would have to be the greatest professional development course ever, because you learn to, budget, you learn to deal with constraints on your time, you learn to forward plan, you learn to negotiate, because some of these little kids, I tell you, it's like arguing your case in court sometimes and trying to explain it. But why? I just explained it. Yeah, but why?
Why do I need to do this?
And, it's, short term, let me break it down. So our vision is long term, but right here and right now, this is what we need. So it's great. But I think one of the aspects that's happened, because when we put in that whole, it's natural for women. It's just natural. With natural comes the assumption that it's easy, and it's not. And I get a lot of the time, you've got a great feminine energy, you're nurturing and stuff like that. It's not feminine. They are human traits. They are the most fundamentally basic human traits that make the world a better place: compassion, empathy, connection, all of the rest of it. So once we start assigning genders to traits and values rather than keeping them where they should be, these are the values that I hold. This is my character that I want to represent, and these are the actions that I flow from it. So that's why I say to people, it's not because of my gender and not despite it. It's because of who I am and what's important to me, because of the values that I've had instilled in me over the years by my parents. My dad was the best example I ever could have got, but he did no real parenting in the home, but he did everything to facilitate and assist it. But my dad was, hey, you get in and you do what needs to be done. In our house, there's, Charlie will grow up with, there's no mum jobs and dad jobs. There's just shit needs to be done jobs. And
Yeah.
that's how it should be.
Yeah, 100%. And I really like what you say about the feelings and the emotions not being gender specific, because it really is. And it's sometimes as well, we see, even younger boys as well, they're so caring and things like that. We actually see it that that's not way that boys are made up, I say in inverted commas, but actually those skills, it's great to see that they've actually then got that nurturing behavior. We really need to be encouraging that, not, as you say, not about man or woman, but this is just about being a good person.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think we got distracted with it. That's why I'd say, what about if it was never about gender? What about if it was just truly about values, characters, and expectations? So, am I exceptional because I'm raised a daughter? No, the biggest problem with stereotypes isn't that they're untrue, because we see them everywhere. I'm a 64-year-old bloke going bald that sometimes wears a
Yeah.
hat to hide it, like so stereotypical. But the problem with stereotypes is that they're incomplete and insufficient. They make one story the only story, and the world's much better than that. So when people say, oh, but men usually, I say, which men? Because I don't. Well, you're the exception. And that's why I say, well, rules don't have exceptions because they're rules. So it's like Newton's rule, laws, and all of those things. But stereotypes have exceptions. So, if you can go, well, you're the exception to the rule. Well, no, I'm the exception to the stereotype. Look a bit
Yeah,
deeper.
exactly. And what do you think that can be done then in a corporate space? As you said, with fathers and that feel that after they've had a child that they need to then almost work more to then provide for their family. And sometimes men are like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. She does it better than me. So they almost pull back a bit and then instead put their time and effort into the workplace instead of actually then at home. Probably because it's new, it's uncomfortable. They sometimes as well can't control the situation. So their lives are changing and then they probably retreat a bit, as I said, back into work. What can we do to then, I guess, encourage men to go into the uncomfortable, to, want to leave early, leave loudly, to say, yep, I'm working flexibly so I can pick up my kids, or, leave early for sport or something like that? Because that's ultimately, as you're saying, around gender equality. We also need the men in the workplace, as you say, to, want to be there and parent and not just go, oh, it's all right, my wife's going to pick it all up.
Yeah. We know that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, I love that saying.
Yep. Policy, all the rest of it. While we still don't call out the bumbling man-child buffoons that advertising keeps serving us up, while we keep with the only mother's love, maternal instinct, all of these things that place huge pressure on mums that may be struggling with the normal challenges of raising an infant. Because I've got friends who wouldn't reach out for help, mum friends, because the stereotype or the narrative was that if it's not coming naturally to you, not only are you failing as a mum, but you may somehow be flawed as a woman, because it's such a base instinct. Whereas with dads, it's like, mate, just don't drop it and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
We rightfully call out sexist, bigoted, outdated talk when it comes to gender, race, all the rest of it. We need to do it with dads. We need to actually celebrate them. Not, like I'm saying, we don't need a round of applause. We just need the space to do it. We've got to fix advertising and media representation so that our boys grow up not seeing that as usual. In the workplace, the discussion around the language used around paternity leave is, are you going to take paternity leave? how long, rather than, when will you be starting your paternity leave? When you come back, what does your role look like coming back? So are you coming back full time? Give them all the options so that suddenly the guy on the end of it is like, hang on, I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times paternity leave or shared parental leave, however you want to frame it, it's a bit like Fight Club. The first rule of
Yeah.
Fight Club is don't mention it.
Don't mention Fight Club. Yep.
Yeah, we've got so many companies that are so busy patting themselves on the back going, how progressive are we, blah, blah, blah. And the biggest one that drives me mad is we know for sure that puppies and kittens aren't just for Christmas. Dads aren't just for paternity leave. Both have ongoing, unforeseen, lifelong responsibilities going forward. I actually found the early years easy because logistics were fine. Bub's on the mat, Bub's in the chair, Bub's on this. I can get round and do everything. Now I've got football training, after school choir practice, all of this, like everything's good.
I have to say, I relate. The older they're getting, the more extracurricular activities, and it's logistically getting actually harder than when they were younger.
Yep, my daughter's 14 and now she's looking at jobs and she's going, oh, Dad, if I work in this, how are you going to get there? It's just going to be more on my plate sort of thing. So that whole acceptance and respect that dads going forward, once they become parents, apart from puberty, this will be the next biggest or even a bigger transition for men to go through. And yet we treat it like, well, it's just a blip for you and then everything goes back to normal. And that's where I really think workplaces can go the next step. The Workplace Gender Equality Agency reports that despite 70% of Australian workplaces now having a formal flexible work policy in place, less than 2%. 2% have set targets for men's engagement in it. Bain & Co., another big company that did a survey, men are more than 2.7 times more likely to have their request for flexible work refused.
Yeah, I've heard those stats around men asking for flexible work, and it's just astonishing.
Yeah, and that's what I'd say. It's just a matter, we've had a myopic thing, but it all comes back from most of these policies were conceived and put into place when men were seen as either incapable, uninterested, or unsuited to caregiving. So the best thing we can do if we're going to give women the opportunities in the professional world is to support them, let them combine caregiving with it. Whereas we created a multi-lane freeway for women into the workforce and a rickety old staircase behind a hidden door for men back into the home. And the male-dominated, or the main employers of men, construction, transport, manufacturing, are the least family-friendly ones because they were conceived in a time when it was a one-earner, one-carer household. Now, and this backs up my whole thesis, suddenly we've got women entering this workforce. Suddenly, it's like, oh, well, we need to make sure that these women can still caregive while entering it. It's like, you're kidding.
Goodness, men can do it as well.
Yeah.
The fathers also sadly want to do it as well.
Yeah, that's why I said these siloed, gender segregated industries can get in the bin because suddenly now that women are coming into them, suddenly it's like, oh, we need to ensure that, they're a little bit more family friendly. And so great, more power to it. But who would have thought that it was women doing it? But men need to advocate for themselves. But we keep saying to men, but you're winning.
Yeah.
Not, I'm earning more. How much? The gender pay gap, I think, in Australia is about 14% at the latest. 14%. I said, well, I could take 14% off your pay to blokes and have you more time, more involvement at the school play, the sports days, all the rest of it. If I could knock 14% off your pay and have you present for all of that, would you do it? Only blokes would say yes. But we still don't do it because we don't have this fatherhood forfeit. We're all focusing on the shiny egg of career advancement and all the rest of it. I'm sorry, but I know a lot of this stuff through daughters. If a daughter has a great relationship with her dad at 12 years old, she'll have better health at 30 years old. So, dads, if you care about your child's outcomes, if you want to give up some of your pay to be more involved, present, and engaged in your kids' lives, your kids will be infinitely better than what they will be if you increase the income coming into the house. Increased income, the only thing it seems to have a correlation with is slightly better academic performance for children. But apart from that, psychological behaviour, all of those things, even language skills and risky behaviour, all better with an involved, engaged and present dad in their lives. And it's not that mums are failing on this. It's just fatherhood is different, not less. Both contribute different things. So even if the relationship isn't intact as a family unit, because it's not about the makeup, the cohabitation, the location of the family unit, it's the interactions between them. And I think,
and the influences that you can bring
yeah, and I
through
think
those
some of the stuff
relationships that you can get.
yeah, I think some of the stuff, because when we study these things, because I went off and studied, that's how insecure I was. I went and signed up and went back to university at 52 to do developmental psychology because I was,
That's amazing.
yeah, wrote my first book at 54. Dad, so all of this stuff, no, it just was so insecure. But some of the stuff that happens when dads are involved, engaged and present in their children's lives, I don't think we can separate it out from the fact that if that's happening, even if the marriage or the relationship isn't under the one roof, the relationship between the parents must be more amicable, more responsive with each other for dad to still be present, involved, engaged. Like, that hasn't got to the point where dad's gone. So it's that whole thing. Everyone's contributing something different to the relationship. And organisations now go, diversity is great because we get different ideas, different perspectives, different things. What about diversity in parenting?
Yeah.
Mum may carry bub on the hip, dad have her up on the shoulders, kids being carried. Both different views for the kids, both different, but still contributing something to it.
In different ways.
Yeah.
Yep. And for the men in the workplace that, do want their flexible work applications approved, what do you think that they can do and advocate, on behalf of themselves and also other parents to say, look, I want this flexible work or I want to be there and present. So they, we often say women want a career and also be a mum, but I guess so do dads. So how can they really step up the advocacy for themselves? Because that really is what they need to do, because it's, removing away from the typical male stereotypes in the workplace to actually say, no, I actually want to be flexible and I want to be at home occasionally as well.
Well, the good news, Carina, is today's dads are spending triple the time on caregiving as what their fathers were just one generation ago. Currently, 1 in 5 single-parent households are dads, and they are also the fastest growing family demographic in Australia, estimated to increase 40 to 65% by the 2041 census. So
Wow.
they're starting to reach critical mass, but the problem is they don't advocate. They keep their heads down. There's a concept called pluralistic ignorance, where we believe we're the only ones that think like this. So we keep our head down, we just nod politely and go along. My advocacy is all about getting in rooms and saying to dads, you're going to miss this. Like, you will miss this. Don't be the problem guy when you go to your boss. Go to him, boss, here's what I'm thinking. My wife has flexible work on this days. If I work in with her, one of the easiest things we can do is if mum takes the late shift, or dad takes the early shift. So if I work with a national automotive company, a panel company, and they split their shifts. We went one from 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. and one from a.m. till 6 p.m. Worked beautifully. Dad's had the after school. Mum came home to a cooked meal. A semi-clean house. Dads had done their best, and she got to start a bit later, do the school run. So they worked as a unit. So it's just, we're about to move the clock for daylight savings here in Australia. Shifted an hour, no one cares. Why not let men start earlier in some of these trades? Again, manufacturing, mining, construction, 75 to 95% male employees. Suddenly you would have hundreds of thousands of dads going, I've got the after school, I've got the school pickup, I've got the in the morning instead of the mad rush where dad's still out the door at 7 or 8 and not home till 5 and mum's left to cope with it because she has flexible working. Her work says we understand. These guys, if you're married to somebody who's in those sectors, I'm sorry, but you're wearing it because he doesn't have the option. And I
Yeah.
keep saying we just need to realise if dad can't, mums must. And so we've gone,
Yeah.
well, mum must because dad can't. So let's put all these things in place so that we can help her. Stop it. Like you're making it, that's why women are suffering burnout because they're doing, you've helped women into burnout. Start helping dads. Oh, but are they capable? Stop watching the advertising media and
Doesn't matter. They can learn to be capable.
yeah, it's a learned skill. So that's why I say to dads, don't be the problem guy. Turn up with the solution. A lot of the management, because they're older, had a wife at home, had a one carer thing, and they didn't see it, so they didn't feel the need for it. I've actually had some that are, well, I didn't have it. Why should they? And I've gone, well,
Yeah. Oh, that old saying. Yep.
yeah, it's like, good for you trying to make the world a better place than what you had to battle for.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we also need mums to step back, to bite your tongue when it's like, you know what? It's not the way I would have done it, but it's been done. Just relax because
We have to let go at the same time. It's not all one way or the other. It's a little bit from both sides.
maternal gatekeeping, when I ask men, what do you think is the biggest barrier stopping you being the father that you believe that you would like to be? Maternal gatekeeping is usually in the top 3.
Wow. What's the other 2?
Workplace pressures and I got no idea what I'm doing.
Okay.
They all jumble around.
Yep.
But it's normally workplaces, and that's why I say this is the guilt and shame, mum guilt and shaming of women who don't carry the caring load is a direct coin flip of the doubt and denigration of dads who do. I turn up at the
Yeah.
school to volunteer. Don't you work? Yeah, I actually do. But, it's important for me to do my bit and to have my foot in the WhatsApp group so people know who I am, stuff like that. Oh, what happened? What do you mean? Why, just you and Charlie? Oh, it's luckiest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
It's framed as a bit of, oh, you poor thing. And it's just, I'm the luckiest bloke in the world with this kid. And, a lot of the times, if we just use that same diversity lens, who's not speaking up in the room, who's not being included, who's not being brought in, because there's a big difference between being included and feeling welcome. And a lot of times, especially as a dad, in the early days, Charlie, oh, Dad, is there any chance I could have a play date with so-and-so? Well, I'll ask her mum. And so, the odd Charlie'd love to have a play date. Oh, I'll see when my husband's available. I've gone, no, it's not for me. Like Charlie
Yeah.
wants to have the play date, and so I didn't have a phone book full of friends that I could ring if I was running late for school pickup. I had a couple where it'd be like, I'm running late. Could you grab Charlie back to your place and I'll come and get her and stuff like that? But all of my friends were off at work during those days. So it was a little bit hard. I didn't have that village and it felt awkward sometimes stepping into other people's village. But once you did, it wasn't ostracized. So it was more the stories I was telling myself about the stories I believe they were telling themselves, and none of it was true. Like
True.
everyone was willing to help. But as men, you got to put your hand up and say, I actually need help. Mums need help. Everyone needs help. The extended family, the intergenerational homes, all of those things that used to be in place have drifted apart now. And I
Yeah.
think
Our
we're
village has
worse
really
off
changed.
for it, but we've just got to drop that adversarial men versus women. Women are losing, men or women winning sort of. It's just, we're all parents.
Yeah, we're all fumbling our way through it and
Yeah.
struggling through it and things like that as well. And what was it like being a solo parent, regardless of gender, in raising, a young child and going through that? Because as you said, now 1 in 5, families are at the moment a solo dad. So that's 20%, which is actually quite a huge number. What was it like for you as solo parenting? Because we know not all marriages are happy, and 50% do end in divorce. And I know there are a number of solo parents that do listen to the podcast. So what was your experience
Carina,
as a solo parent?
I don't know whether this says much about my relationship skills, but I actually loved it. It was a lot easier than navigating some relationships because it was just about me and my daughter. I was learning a lot about myself, but I loved every minute of it because getting to that age, I'd lived, like I said, getting to travel the world, doing security for rock stars. And so I'd done everything. And then suddenly, um, it was a life of no consequence and no real, it impressed other people more than it actually fulfilled me. And at 50, it was getting pretty old pretty quick. I was starting to look a little bit like those stereotypes. It was great on Sundays because I had to work Saturdays because I was a strength and conditioning coach for an AFL team. And so there was a lot of travel, but Sundays were my daughter's day, blocked out. She got to pick where we went, what we ate, what we wear. Well, so it was, and I'd come home some nights, Saturday night, and there'd be a list like this long.
Yeah.
It's we're going to go here and there and there. And he said, Bub, you got to prioritize. Like this place is near that place. And then we'd have matching outfits and all the rest of it. And it was great. And a lot of the times I would have, occasionally I would have interest in the romantic things, but it just didn't interest me at the time because I was having such a good time focusing on this kid and just it's the voices in my head changed, and it'd be like suddenly I'm tearing up watching cartoons with this kid, and it's like, are you kidding? The bloke that used to terrorize people that everyone used to say, oh, mate, do not upset this bloke. And suddenly it's like, my daughter's concert, she'd win an award at school, and I'd be the one crying like a goose. And it's just, where's this
That's
coming,
amazing.
coming from? And, yeah, so I loved the solo parenting. It was great to be able to focus on her. We got to Disneyland and, all of the things. We've fed every animal with encounters, giraffes, and swum with seals and dolphins and all the stuff that I just wouldn't have done. And to have that second chance to be around somebody who everything in the world was exciting and new and amazing and wow, hey, it sets you on fire. And now to see her now who she's become, it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world. But again, I realize how fortunate I was to be able to work around that and be fully involved and engaged. So being a late dad, I think, really helped the whole experience where I didn't really care what other people thought anymore.
Yeah. And how did you manage work and also being a dad, as a solo dad as well?
When I was going through the separation, I had a small car accident and they just took me in for a scan, and they found that I had some lumps and bumps and things that weren't meant to be there. Suddenly my future wasn't guaranteed. And I just remember thinking like, this is great. I finally have a daughter. Marriage is separated. It was a fairly acrimonious separation, and now I may not even get to see her. And I remember going to court and the other side arguing there was no use of the child getting attached to the dad when he may not be here. And that was their argument. And thankfully, the best judge in the world said, no, like, we're going to rush this through and going forward because this child deserves to have fond, firm and lasting memories, regardless of how long. And sorry, I'm going to tear up. And I just lived with that. So I had to have treatment, and after radiation, you couldn't be around your child for 3 days because it leaches out of your system. So they set the whole visit. It was 50-50 when she was 9 months old, unheard of. Judge gave overnights and everything, but he set it up so that I would spend the day with her on Thursday I would stop on the way back from having her for the day, have my radiation treatment in the hospital, and then I would pick her up Sunday and have her Sunday through Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, take her back Wednesday. And everyone was so good about it. I remember running late to the hospital and ringing them, and they would wait for me because they knew if I didn't have my treatment that day, I wouldn't get to pick her up on Sunday. So I moved all of my clients around and just worked around her 3 days a week and then stuck with it. Just said, you know what? Wednesdays I will work 14-hour days to get everyone through. I was doing strength and conditioning then. I had clients that used to train separately that all said, we can all train at 6 o'clock in the morning together. Still paid me full fees. Just everything aligned. But that's why I say to guys, you can find solutions to your problem. If you look at it, innovation happens within constraints. And the problem is we don't see parenting as a genuine constraint. It's something worthwhile to, how can I not prioritize, but how can I ensure that it gets the level of commitment that I'm happy with that work does? Workplaces need to be aware the cost of recruitment and loss of talent. And, we do all this stuff. We do employee engagement surveys and we have ping pong tables and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
You show me a bloke or a woman who's struggling at home, and I'll show you someone who's not engaged and productive at work. So, it's a give, take. You want somebody who goes the extra mile at work, make sure you give them the space to do it at home. The ridiculous thing is, in Victoria, we get 2 days off, mandated, one for a horse race and one for the grand final.
Yeah.
I have, say, touch wood, someone close to me die. I get one bereavement day, or I have a child come into my life, like the biggest thing, and I get 10 days.
Yeah.
20% of that I can get for a football match or a horse race.
Yeah, it seems pretty crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's why I say when you sit back and actually you look at this stuff and you look at some of the messaging and you just, we see headline after headline. Julie Gillard, when she changed it, this is going to condemn single mums to poverty. What's going to condemn single parents? Oh, but mainly single mums. But hang on, if you're going to draw an arbitrary line through that cohort of parents, what about how comfortable or appropriate would be say mainly heterosexual single mothers? Because if you want to be quantitative instead of qualitative, then that would, but you would never say that. Like, why would you?
No.
And as a group of advocates that all want workplaces to be better for parents, surely our goal should be to recruit as many stakeholders to actually, it's advertising does it beautifully. I know for a fact now, and I was completely oblivious that on a good day, I have all 7 signs of visible aging. Until these ads started running, I had no idea. So until we start telling dads, fatherhood forfeit, you're missing out. Like, your workplace needs to support you to be more involved, engaged and present in your life. And you know what else? Your relationship will be better off. How hard, see your mate going through a divorce? Egalitarian relationships have less chance of separation. You love your wife, you do anything for her? Guess what? Caring for your kids on a co-equal basis and fighting for her to have the opportunity to flourish in other areas of her life will do more for her than you wanting to fight the next door neighbor because he said something inappropriate or like, come on, God, just reframe it. You want to be brave and courageous. Don't fight dragons. Tell other blokes ideas when they, joke at you, oh, daddy daycare happening. Mate, I'm actually making sure a child survives in the world. I'm giving her an example or, and you think your joke's going to, how's that land? You feel good about yourself now? That's the stuff we need to be standing up to, as well as, the inappropriate sexist stuff that comes out of some goose's mouth about women. Don't just nod and laugh it off. It's not just taking the piss, it's setting the tone, and just, that's why I say to guys, really, you really think that I'm going to worry about your opinion when it's about my daughter's outcomes. So let's weigh that up. You know what? You don't really matter.
Yeah, and certainly at the end of the day, like what's on the tombstone, I worked, 100 hours a week, or I was a present and loving father. So it really, at the end of it all really shows who we are and what we want and the values and I guess the lasting legacy that we have as parents as well.
Yeah, 100% correct. That's why I say to blokes, you've fought and you've battled and you've strove to become important, irreplaceable, involved in the minutiae of all the details of the direction the company's going forward, and yet not in your family. And I guarantee you, if your workplace has allowed that to happen, you're both managing the wrong things. Because like any football team, if you have your best team on the field 100 minutes of the game, what happens when something goes wrong?
Yep.
It's all shattered. You can't be optional and irreplaceable within your family. Don't let workplaces take that for you. And for workplaces, you don't need to hire on diversity alone. The opportunities are there. Push that out. I'd love to see paternity leave made meaningful and mandatory. So, we've now got 15 days reserved for dad, and everyone's going, oh, no, that's great. No, it's, look at what's happening in the world. Some of the Nordic countries have 3 months. The daddy quota in Norway, it's just over 15 weeks, mandatory.
And also then the outcomes that those fathers have of like not only in the workplace but also then at home with the caring arrangements, as you said, the long-term positive impacts of having those fathers around are set there. But as you say, it's set from birth and giving them permission to actually be an active and present dad, not, oh, this is a nice to have, but oh, we want you back at work.
Yeah. And once you're back at work, we want you to work like you don't have that family at home, like you used to before you had the family. Whereas with mums, we're going to keep, doing all these things to support you, do the caring and working. And that's why I say the burnout's just killing us.
Yeah, 100%. So if we had to fast forward, 20 years, where would you like to see the active role of fathers, both in the workplace and at home?
I'd actually like to see parental leave coincide. So rather than mum or dad, mum and dad, so they can co-parent together. One of the things that really stands out, because when women become pregnant, they're way ahead. Their hormones shift, their priorities shift, they're already, and dad, it still doesn't strike home. The majority of dads I speak to, when you say, when did you first feel like you're a dad? It was you were feeding him dad. And the majority of them would say, I'd say a good 65 to 70% say the first time I was entrusted to be alone, the first time I took Bub out in the car, in the pram, down the coffee shop, just me and him or her, that's when it sunk in, like, I got this. So we're months and months and months behind. And a lot of the times that tone and trajectory for parental roles and dynamics is set in those first few months. So we dads, Bub's crying, what do I do?
Yeah.
If mum's never had a kid, well,
How does she know what to do? Yeah.
I say to them, there's a reason why management gets paid more, because the responsibilities and the workload and all the rest of it. So straight away, you've demoted yourself to assistant. Find your way. You've got your own lessons to learn, your own, they're pretty sturdy. They don't dive from this. But again, it comes back to that culture. We're just so culturally entrenched with mum's care, dad's work. It's why I keep saying care and nurturing doesn't depend on chromosomes any more than leadership and ambition does. It's just time and role. There's a great, if anyone's listening, look up, there's a great evolutionary biologist, Dr. Lee Gettler, and he talks about the hormonal and neurological changes in men as a result of direct caregiving.
Yep.
Testosterone drops, progesterone, prolactin, linked with breastfeeding. So when Bub cries, a woman's prolactin level rises and it helps bring on breast milk production. In men, when a baby cries, their prolactin goes up. And you think, what would that be for? It's sensed in the same part of the brain for men as what danger is. So they hear the baby cry. They think, quick, something's happening. They go to the baby to see the baby crying. But then they'll take it to mum. When mum breastfeeds, dad gets a rush of oxytocin. So the social bonding one. So dad, just the act of watching mum breastfeed makes him more committed and more involved with the baby. Our testosterone drops. That's why I've got my dad bod now is dropped off. That releases, makes us more likely to be attentive caregivers. The parts of the brain that are associated with empathy and caregiving and community, they light up, they strengthen the myelination through that. So men are hardwired to do this stuff as well, but it's got to be in response. And then epigenetically, so it travels down generations, dads who do this have kids who have lower testosterone and are more likely to be good caregivers as well. So it's not just monkey see, monkey do. We're actually pre-programmed. We're switching on the genes and the hormones all the way through. So
yeah,
it is natural for dads to do this. It's just we created an industrial revolution where we separated families out. Dad went off somewhere else to work in a factory. Whereas you go back this whole hunter-gatherer, men hunted, women gathered. No, they went out as a group. And it was actually the
and as a
grandparents
village.
who cared for the kids and mums and dads hunted and gathered together.
Things have really changed in that evolution. 100 years ago, 110 years ago now, with Henry T. Ford and the 40-hour work week and the single genders and things like that, that certainly a lot of systemic change that still needs to come to actually catch up for the last 100 years. We're not driving around the Henry T. Fords anymore. Technology and our societal systems definitely need to look at where we are today.
Yeah, 100%, Carina.
Now, Michael, what do you do to fill your cup? Because you're a very busy person and I know you've got an active 14-year-old daughter. So how do you fill your cup?
My daughter and I surf every Sunday, not during footy season. She was vice captain of a footy team, so she's big on sports, and so am I. We train in the gym together, and time in nature with her is my cup filler. We've just moved onto a big farm now, so we've just got horses and alpacas and chickens and goats, and that's been pretty good. But I love speaking and being a part of this advocacy.
Just one final question. Michael, how can people get in touch with you and connect with you further?
Thanks, Carina. LinkedIn is probably where I'm most prolific. It's my stream of consciousness where I'll just, that's getting to me, but I also have a website, michaelray.com.au, and there's also Michael Ray Solo Dad, but LinkedIn's where I'm most active. Or if they want me for speaking, there's a booking form on the website as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for today's chat. I've loved it because I think it's great to see the work that you do. And I know there's a few other dads also in this space, but I've watched and followed your journey for a number of years now on LinkedIn. And so I have to say the work that you're doing to also advocate and change the language and also those cultures around workplaces to encourage more dads to be active and present fathers, I think is really valuable, and keep it up, please, because us women really need people like yourself doing it. We can't just be banging down the doors because we already know what needs to change. But having people like yourself, men speaking to men in this topic, I think is so powerful. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too, Carina. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Working Mumma podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mumma social channels. Remember, Mumma is MUMMA, or website www.workingmumma.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you, and see you next time. Have a great week.